guys, welcome to the channel. You guys can refer to me as Six. Today we'll be continuing the book of Coraline by Neil Gaiman. In my last video, we read pages 1 through 50, and in this video, I'll read pages 50 to 100. So if you don't want to tune in mid-story, go ahead and check out the first video. But let's get into it. Okay. Page 50. So I'm gonna reread the last sentence from page 50 and then continue on to page 51. Because it's like I'll be starting like randomly. It's like starts off mid-sentence on page 51. Or maybe I should just let's just get into it. So it says, I'm afraid we'll be out all day tomorrow, Caroline. Lovey said Miss Forcible. We'll be staying over with April's niece in Royal Tunbridge Wells. They showed Coraline a photographic album with photographs of Miss Spink's niece in it, and then Coraline went home. She opened her monkey box. She opened her money box. She opened her money box and walked down to the supermarket. She bought 2 large bottles of limeade, a chocolate cake, and a new bag of apples. We went back home and ate them for dinner. She cleaned her teeth and went into her father's office. She woke up his computer and wrote a story. Coraline's story. There was a girl, her name was Apple. She used to dance a lot. She danced and danced until her feet turned into sausages. Look how it's spelled. I don't know if you can see that. It's spelled Sossages. I'm gonna read the story. Coraline's story. There was a girl. Her name was Apple. She used to dance a lot. She danced and danced until her feet turned into sausages. The end. She printed out the story and turned off the computer. Then she drew a picture of the little girl dancing underneath the words on the paper. She ran herself a bath with too much bubble bath in it, and the bubbles ran over the side and went all over the floor. She dried herself and the floor as best as she could and went to bed. Coraline woke up in the night. She went into her parents' bedroom, but the bed was made and empty. The glowing green numbers on the digital clock glowed 3:12 a.m. All alone in the middle of the night, Coraline began to cry. There was no other sound in the empty flat. She climbed into her parents' bed, and after a while, she went to sleep. Coraline was woken by cold paws patting her face. She opened her eyes. Big green eyes stared back at her. It was the cat. Hello, said Coraline. How did you get in? The cat didn't say anything. Coraline got out of bed. She was wearing a long t-shirt and pajama bottoms. Have you come to tell me something? The cat yawned, which made its eyes flash green. Did he know where Mummy and Daddy are? The cat blinked at her slowly. Is that a yes? The cat blinked again. Coraline decided that that was indeed a yes. Will you take me to them? The cat stared at her. Then it walked out into the hall. She followed it. It walked the length of the corridor and stopped down at the very end, where a full-length occasionally of replacing it with something newer she never had. Coraline turned on the light in the hall. The mirror showed the corridor behind her. That was only to be expected, but reflected in the mirror were her parents. They stood awkwardly in the reflection of the hall. They seemed sad and alone. As Coraline watched, they waved to her slowly with limp hands. Coraline's father had his arm around her mother. In the mirror, Coraline's mother and father stared at her. Her father opened his mouth and said something, but she could hear nothing at all. Her mother breathed on the inside of the mirror, and quickly, before the fog faded, she wrote, "So ble," which is backwards, and it says, "Help us." With the tip of her forefinger, the fog on the inside of the mirror faded, and so did her parents, and now the mirror reflected only the corridor and Coraline and the cat. "Where are they?" Coraline asked the cat. The cat made no reply, but Coraline could imagine its voice, dry as dead. Dry as dead fly on a dry as dead fly on a windowsill in winter, saying, "Well, where do you think they are?" "They aren't going to come back, are they?" said Coraline. Not under their own steam." The cat blinked at her. Coraline took it as a yes. "Right," said Coraline. "Then I suppose there is only one thing left to do." She walked into her father's study. She sat down at his desk. Then she picked up the telephone, and she opened the phone book and telephoned the local police station. "Police," said a gruff male voice. "Hello," she said. "My name is Coraline Jones. You're up a bit after your bedtime, aren't you, young lady?" said the policeman. "Possibly," said Coraline, who was not going to be diverted by him ringing to report a crime. "And what sort of crime would that be?" "Kidnapping. Grown-up napping, really. My parents have been stolen away into a world on the other side of the mirror in our hall." "And do you know who stole them?" asked the police officer. Coraline could hear the smile in his voice. She tried extra hard to sound like an adult might sound, to make him take her seriously. "I think my other mother has them both in her clutches. She may want to keep them and sew their eyes with black buttons, or she may simply have them in order to lure me back into reach of her fingers. I'm not sure. The nefarious clutches of her fiendish fingers, is it?" he said. "You know what I suggest, Miss Jones?" "No," said Coraline. "What?" "You ask your mother to make you a big old mug of hot chocolate and then give you a great big old hug. There's nothing like hot chocolate and a hug for making the nightmares go away. And if she starts to tell you off for waking her up at night, why, you tell her that that's what the policeman said." He had a deep, reassuring voice. Coraline was not reassured. "When I see her," said Coraline, "I shall tell her that," and she put down the telephone. The black cat, who had sat on the floor combing his fur through this entire conversation, now stood up and led the way into the hall. Coraline went back into her bedroom and put on her blue dressing gown on her slippers. She looked under the sink for a flashlight and found one, but the batteries had long since run down, and it barely glowed with the faintest straw-colored light. She put it down again and found a box of "In Case of Emergency." white wax candles and thrust one into a candlestick. She put an apple into each pocket. She picked up the ring of keys and took the old black key off the ring. She walked into the drawing room and looked at the door. She had the feeling that the door was looking at her, which she knew was silly, and knew on a deeper level was somehow true. She went back into her bedroom and rummaged in the pocket of her jeans. She found the stone with the hole in it and put it into her dressing gown pocket. She lit the candle wick with a match and watched it sputter and light. Then she picked up the black key. It was cold in her hand. She put it into the keyhole in the door, but did not turn the key. When I was a little girl, said Coraline to the cat, when we lived in our old house a long, long time ago, my dad took me for a walk on the wasteland between our house and the shops. It wasn't the best place to go for a walk, really. There were all these things that people had thrown away back there, old cookers and broken dishes and dolls with no arms and no legs, and empty cans and broken bottles. Mom and Dad made me promise not to go exploring back there because there were too many sharp things and tenderness and such. But I kept telling them I wanted to explore. So one day my dad put on his big brown boots and his gloves and put my boots on me and my jeans and sweater, and we went for a walk. We must have walked for about 20 minutes. We went down this hill to the bottom of a gully where a stream was, when my dad suddenly said to me, Coraline, run away up the hill now. He said it in a tight sort of way urgently. So I did. I ran away up the hill. Something hurt me on the back of my arm as I ran, but I kept running. As I got to the top of the hill, I heard somebody thundering up the hill behind me. It was my dad charging like a rhino. When he reached me, he picked me up in his arms and swept me over the edge of the hill. And then we stopped and we puffed and we panted and we looked back down the gully. The air was alive with yellow wasps. We must have stepped on a wasp nest in a rotten branch as we walked. And while I was running up the hill, my dad stayed and got stung to give me time to run away. His glasses had fallen off when he ran. I only had the one sting on the back of my arm. He had 39 stings all over him. We counted later in the bath. The black cat began to wash its face and whiskers in a manner that indicated increasing impatience. Coraline reached down and stroked the back of its head and neck. The cat stood up, walked several paces until it was out of her reach. Then it sat down and looked up at her again. So, said Coraline, later that afternoon my dad went back again to the wasteland to get his glasses back. He said if he left it another day he wouldn't be able to remember where they'd fallen. As soon as he got home wearing his glasses, he said that he wasn't scared when he was standing there and the wasps were stinging him and hurting him. And he was watching me run away because he knew he had to give me enough time to run or the wasp would have come after both of us. Coraline turned the key in the door. I turned with a loud clunk. The door swung open. There was no brick wall on the other side of the door, only darkness. A cold wind blew through the passageway. Coraline made no move to walk through the door. He said that wasn't brave of him, doing that just standing there and being stung. Said Coraline to the cat. It wasn't brave because he wasn't scared. It first step down the dark corridor, she could smell dust and damp and mustiness. The cat padded along beside her. And why was that? Asked the cat, although it sounded barely interested. Because she said, when you're scared but you still do it anyways, that's brave. The candle cast huge, strange, flickering shadows along the wall. She heard something moving in the darkness beside her, to one side of her. She could not tell. It seemed as if it was keeping pace with her, whatever it was. And that's why you're going back to her world then, said the cat. Because your father once saved you from wasps. Don't be silly, said Coraline. I'm going back for them because they are my parents, and if they noticed I was gone, I'm sure they would do the same for me. You know you're talking again. How fortunate am I, said the cat, in having a traveling companion of such wisdom and intelligence. Its tone remained sarcastic, but its fur was bristling, and its brush of a tail stuck up in the air. Coraline was going to say something like sorry, or wasn't it a lot shorter walk last time? When the candle went out as suddenly as if it had been snuffed by someone's hand, there was a scrambling and battering, and Coraline could feel her heart pounding against her ribs. She put out one hand and felt something wispy, like a spider's web, brush her hands and her face. At the end of the corridor, the electric light went on, lightning after the darkness. A woman stood, silhouetted by the light, a light ahead of Coraline. Coraline, darling, she called. Said Coraline, and she ran after, and she ran forward, eager and relieved. Darling, said the woman, why did you ever run away from me? Coraline was too close to stop, and she felt the other mother's cold arm enfold her. She stood there, rigid and trembling as the other mother held her tightly. Where are my parents? Coraline asked. We are here, said her other mother in a voice so close to her real mother's that Coraline could scarcely tell them apart. We're here, we're ready to love you and play with you and feed you and make your life interesting. Coraline pulled back, and the other mother let her go with reluctance. The other father who had been sitting on a chair in the hallway stood up and smiled. Come on into the kitchen, he said. I'll make us a midnight snack, and you'll want something to drink. Hot chocolate, perhaps. Coraline walked down the hallway until she reached the mirror at the end. There was nothing reflected in it but a young girl in her dressing gown and slippers, who looked like she had recently been crying, but whose eyes were real eyes, not black buttons, and who was holding tightly to a burned-out candle in a candlestick. She looked at the girl in the mirror, and the girl in the mirror looked back at her. I will be brave, thought Coraline. Now I am brave. She put down the candlestick on the floor, then turned around. The other mother and the other father were looking at her hungrily. I don't need a snack, she said. I have an apple, see? And she took an apple from her dressing gown pocket, then bit into it with relish and enthusiasm that she did not really feel. The other father looked disappointed. The other mother smiled, showing a full set of teeth, and each of the teeth was a tiny bit too long. The lights in the hallway made her black button eyes glitter and gleam. You don't frighten me, said Coraline. I thought they did frighten her very much. writes back, "The world seemed to shimmer a little at the edges. Whatever would I have done with your old parents? If they have left you, Coraline, it must be because they became bored of you or tired. I will never become bored of you, and I will never abandon you. You'll always be safe here with me." The other mother's wet-looking black hair drifted around her head like the tentacles of a creature in the deep sea, deep ocean. "They weren't bored of me," said Coraline. "You're lying. You stole them." "Silly, silly Coraline. They are fine wherever they are." Coraline simply glared at the other mother. "I'll prove it," said the other mother, and brushed the surface of the mirror with her long white fingers. It clouded over as if a dragon had breathed on it, and then it cleared. In the mirror, it was daytime already. Coraline was looking at the hallway all the way down to her front door. The door opened from the outside and Coraline's mother and father walked inside. They carried suitcases. "That was a fine holiday," said Coraline's father. "How nice it is not to have Coraline anymore," said her mother with a happy smile. "Now we can do all the things we always wanted to do, like go abroad, but were prevented from doing by having a little daughter." "And," said her father, "I take great comfort in knowing that her other mother will take better care of her than we ever could." The mirror fogged and faded and reflected the night once more. "See," said her other mother. "No," said Coraline, "I don't see, and I don't believe it either." She hoped that what she had just seen was not real. Oh, she was not as certain as she sounded. There was a tiny doubt inside of her, like a maggot in an apple core. Then she looked up and saw the expression on her other mother's face, a flash of real anger, which crossed her face like a summer lightning, and Coraline was sure in her heart that what she had seen in the mirror was no more than an illusion. Coraline sat down on the sofa and ate her apple. "Please," said her other mother, "don't be difficult." She walked into the drawing room and clapped her hands twice. There was a rustling noise and a black rat appeared. "I started up at her. Bring me the key," she said. The rat chittered, then it ran through the open door that led back to Coraline's own flat. The rat returned, dragging the key behind it. "Why don't you have your own key on the side?" asked Coraline. "There's only one key, only one door," said the other father. "Hush," said the other mother. "You must not bother our darling Coraline's head with such trivialities. She put the key in the keyhole and twisted. The lock was stiff, but it clunked close. She dropped the key into her apron pocket. Outside, the sky had begun to light into a luminous gray. "If we aren't going to have a midnight snack," said the other mother, "we still need our beauty sleep. I'm going back to bed, Coraline. I would strongly suggest that you do the same." She placed her long white fingers on the shoulders of the other father, and she walked him out of the room. Coraline walked over to the door at the far corner of the drawing room. She tugged on it, but it was tightly locked. The door of her other parents' bedroom was now closed. She was indeed tired, but she did not want to sleep in the bedroom. She did not want to sleep under the same roof as her other mother. The front door was not locked. Coraline walked out into the dawn and down the stone stairs. She sat down on the bottom step. It was cold. Something furry pushed itself against her side in one smooth, insinuating motion. Coraline jumped and then breathed a sigh of relief when she saw what it was. "Oh, it's you," she said to the black cat. "See," said the cat, "it wasn't so hard recognizing me, was it? Even without names. Well, what if I wanted to call you?" The cat wrinkled its nose and managed to look unimpressed. Calling cats, it's confined. Calling cats it confined tends to be a rather overrated activity. Might as well call a whirlwind. "What if it was dinner time?" asked Coraline. "Wouldn't you want to be called then?" "Of course," said the cat, "but a simple cry of dinner would do nicely, see? No need for names." "Why does she want me?" Coraline asked the cat. "Why does she want me to stay here with her?" "She wants something to love, I think," said the cat. "Something that isn't her. She might want something to eat as well. It's hard to tell with creatures like that." "Don't you have any advice?" asked Coraline. The cat looked as if it were about to say something sarcastic. Then it flickered its whiskers and said, "Challenger, there's no guarantee she'll play fair. Her kind of thing loves games and challenges." "What kind of thing is that?" asked Coraline, but the cat made no answer. Simply stretched luxuriantly and walked away. Then it stopped and turned and said, "I'd go inside if I were you. Get some sleep. You have a long day ahead of you." And then the cat was gone. Still, Coraline realized it had a point. She crept back into the silent house, past the closed bedroom door, inside which the other mother and the other father, what, she wondered, slept, waited, and then it came to her that should she open the bedroom door, she would find it empty, and more precisely, that it was an empty room, and it would remain empty until the exact moment that she opened the door. Somehow that made it easier. Coraline walked into the green and pink party of her own bedroom. She walked down the door and held the toy box in front of it. It would not keep anyone out, but the noise somehow would make trying to dislodge it would wake her, she hoped. The toys in the toy box were still mostly asleep, and they stirred and muttered as she moved their box. And then they went back to sleep. Coraline checked under her bed, looking for rats, but there was nothing there. She took off her dressing gown and slippers and climbed into bed and fell asleep with barely enough time to reflect. As she did so, on what the cat would as she did so, on what the cat could have meant by a challenge. Chapter 6. Coraline was woken by the mid-morning sun fell on her face. For a moment she felt utterly dislocated. She did not know where she was. She was not entirely sure who she was. It is astonishing just how much of what we are can be tied to the beds. We wake up in the morning, and it is astonishing how fragile that can be. Sometimes Coraline would forget who she was while she was daydreaming that she was exploring the Arctic or the Amazon rainforest or darkest Africa, and it was not until someone tapped her on the shoulder or said her name that Coraline would come back from a million miles away with a start fraction of a second have to remember who she was and what her name was, and that she was even there at all. Now there was sun on her face, and she was Coraline Jones. Yes, and then the green and pinkness of the room she was in, and the rustling of a large painted paper butterfly, as if it fluttered and beat its way about the ceiling. That's a real good one right there. Looks really spooky. As it fluttered and beat its way about the ceiling, told her where she had woken up. She climbed out of bed. She could not wear her pajamas, dressing gown, and slippers during the day. She decided, even if it meant wearing the other Coraline's clothes. Was there another Coraline? No, she realized there wasn't. There was just her. There was no regular clothes in the cupboard. Though they were more like dressing up clothes, or she thought, the kind of clothes she would love to have hanging in her own wardrobe at home. There was a raggedy witch costume, a patched scarecrow costume, a future warrior costume with the little digital lights in it that glittered and blinked, a slinky evening dress all covered in feathers and mirrors. Finally, in a drawer, she found a pair of black jeans that seemed to be made of velvet night and a gray sweater that color of thick smoke, with faint and tiny stars in the fabric which twinkled. She pulled on the jeans and the sweater, then she put on a pair of bright orange boots she found at the bottom of the cupboard. She took her last apple out of her pocket of her dressing gown and then took from the same pocket the stone with the hole in it. She put the stone into her pocket. She put the stone in her pocket of her jeans, and it was as if her head had cleared a little, as if she had come out of some sort of fog. She went into the kitchen, but it was deserted. Still, she was sure that there was someone in the flat. She walked down the hall until she reached her father's study and discovered that it was occupied. Where's the other mother? She asked the other father. He was sitting in the study at a desk which looked just like her father's, but he was not doing anything at all, not even reading gardening catalogs as her own father did, when he was only pretending to be working. Out, he told her, fixing the doors. There are some vermin problems. He seemed pleased to have somebody to talk to. The rats, you mean? No, the rats are our friends. This is the other kind, big black fellow, with his tail high. The cat, you mean? That's the one, said her other father. He looked less like her true father today. There was something slightly vague about his face, like bread dough, that began to rise, smoothing out the bumps and cracks and depressions. Really, I mustn't talk to you when she's not here, he said. But don't you worry, you won't be gone often. I shall demonstrate our tender hospitality to you, such that you will not even think about ever going back. He closed his mouth and folded his hands in his lap. So what am I to do now? Asked Coraline. The other father pointed to his lips. Silence. If you won't even talk to me, said Coraline, I am going exploring. No point, said the other father. There isn't anywhere but here. It is all she made. The house, the grounds, and the people in the house. She made it and waited. Then he looked embarrassed and he put one finger to his lips again, as if he had just said too much. rattled and shook it. No, it was locked fast, and the other mother had the key. She looked around the room. It was so familiar was what made it feel so that is what made it feel so truly strange. Everything was exactly the same as she remembered. There was all her grandmother's strange smelling furniture. There was the painting of the bowl of the fruit, a bunch of grapes, two plums, a peach, and an apple. Hanging on the wall, there was the low wooden table with the lion's feet and the empty fireplace which seemed to suck heat from the room. But there was something else, something she did not remember seeing before. A ball of glass up on the mantelpiece. She went over to the fireplace, went up on tiptoes, and lifted it down. It was a snow globe with two little people in it. Coraline shook it and set the snow flying. White snow that glittered as it tumbled through the water. Then she put the snow globe back on the mantelpiece and carried on looking for her true parents and for a way out. She went out of the flat, past the flashing lights, door, behind which the other Mrs. Spink and Forcible performed their show forever. She set off into the woods where Coraline came from. Once you were through the patch of trees, you saw nothing but the meadow and the old tennis court. In this place, the woods went on farther, the trees becoming cruder and less tree-like the further you went. Pretty soon they seemed very approximate, like the idea of trees, a grayish brown trunk, below a greenish splotch of something that might have been leaves above. Coraline wondered if the other mother wasn't interested in trees, or if she just had, or if she just hadn't been, or if she just hadn't bothered with its bit properly, with it, with this bit properly, because nobody was expected to come this far. She kept walking, and then the mist began. It was damp, like a normal fog or mist. It was not cold, and it was not warm. It felt to Coraline like she was walking into nothing. I am an explorer, thought Coraline to herself, and I need all the ways out of here that I can get, so I shall keep walking. The world she was walking through was a pale nothingness, like a blank sheet of paper or an enormous empty white room. It had no temperature, no smell, no texture, no taste. It certainly isn't mist, thought Coraline, although she did not know what it was. For a moment she wondered if she might not have gone blind. But no, she could see herself plain as day. But there was no ground beneath her feet, just a misty, milky whiteness. And what do you think you're doing? Said a shape to one side of her. It took a few moments for her eyes to focus on it properly. She thought it might be some kind of lion at first, some distance away from her, and then she thought it might be a mouse close beside her, and then she knew what it was. I'm exploring, Coraline told the cat. Its fur stood straight out from its body, and its eyes were wide, while its tail was down and between its legs. It did not look a happy cat. Bad place, said the cat. If you want to call it a place, which I don't. What are you doing here? I'm exploring. Nothing to find here, said the cat. This is just the outside, the part of the place she hasn't bothered to create. She just padded through the pale mist beside Coraline. A shape began to appear in front of them, something high and towering and dark. You were wrong, she told the cat. There is something there. And then it took shape in the mist, a dark house which loomed at them out of the formless whiteness. But that's, said Coraline, the house you just left, agreed the cat. Precisely. Maybe I just got turned around in the mist, said Coraline. The cat curled the high tip of its tail into a question mark and tipped its head to one side. You might have done, it said. I certainly would not. Wrong indeed. But how can you walk away from something and still come back to it? Easy, said the cat. Think of somebody walking around the world. You start off walking away from something and end up coming back to it. Small world, said Coraline. It's big enough for her, said the cat. Spiders, webs, only have to be large enough to catch flies. Coraline shivered. He said that she's fixing all the gates and the doors, she told the cat. To keep you out. She may try, said the cat, unimpressed. Oh yes, she may try. They were standing under a clump of trees now beside the house. These trees looked much more likely. There's ways in and ways out of this place like this that even she doesn't know about. Did she make this place then? Asked Coraline. Made it, found it, what's the difference? Asked the cat. Either way, she's had it a very long time. Hang on. And it gave a shiver and a leap, and before Coraline could blink, the cat was sitting with its paw holding down a big black rat. It's not that I like rats as the best of times, said the cat, conversationally, as if nothing had happened, but the rats in this place are all spies for her. She uses them as her eyes and hands, and with that, the cat let the rat go. It ran several feet, and then the cat, with one bound, was upon it, baiting it hard with one sharp clawed paw, while with the other paw it held the rat down. I love this bit, said the cat happily. Want to see me do that again? So, I'm actually going to pause here. 25 pages in. We're stopping at the end of page 75. If you guys enjoyed and are enjoying this series, please leave a like, subscribe, and comment. Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really appreciate it. Gotta check if the mic was still on. I'd really